Transparent pink, the boxing glove.
So I got asked a few different variations on how I put the Fanstume Singular 2024 music together. So here's some of that information. One of the Brothers Chaps sent me an email asking me if I would put music to some of Strong Bad's singing for the Fanstume tune. It's similar to the way I put music to Homestar Runner singing Dinosaur Pie in the Halloween hide and seek video game. Homestar sings Dinosaur Pie a cappella, and so I took it and added some music and then posted it to my YouTube channel.
Out of the town with my crew, top down, dinosaur pie.
Apparently, the Brothers Chaps liked what I did and asked me to do something similar for an official tune. And I couldn't say yes fast enough. So they sent me some audio of Strong Bad singing unaccompanied, and I set to work. So first, my wife made it possible for me to get a day and a half of uninterrupted time to work on this. So shout out to the people who really make creative work possible, and that's often the unseen people who take on the less glamorous stuff. The singing that Strong Bad does in the recording that I received was all just Strong Bad winging it. It's not done particularly in tune or in a steady rhythm or with too many repeating themes, with the exception of the transparent pings of boxing gloves part. It's kind of all over the place, really, and there's a lot of ways you can fix that. But for the most part, having it be, let's say, rudimentary is part of the Strong Bad brand and charm. So I wasn't going to auto-tune it or use flex mode to get the rhythms right. I did a little bit of that in one or two places, but for the most part, all I really did was chop up the vocals and align them where I wanted. I also repeated a line at the beginning to give the song more shape. As they say at Berkeley, repetition legitimizes.
Repetition legitimizes.
I never went to Berkeley, just for the record, but repetition legitimizes.
Repetition legitimizes.
This beginning part here, it's all just Strong Bad talking. Let's just so hear the horns. Normally, if I have a lot of time, I'll assemble individual horn parts and have it do what I want. But since this need to be done quickly, I leaned heavily on a preset Logic Pro 4-voice, I think, studio horn configuration. Let's see how many horns are in there. Is it 4 or 6? It's 6 actually, but I don't think I ever used more than 4 voices. Anyway, also you'll see the drums here. Well, not the additional drums, which are just sort of like hits I wanted to make sure happen, but the drums here are a studio drum. I usually have it follow, something. So in this case, I have following the chords. I got all the chords aren't showing up here, but if we go down a little ways, you can see I get pretty, I add the chords and then have it follow the studio brand and, tweak the complexity, intensity, and the preset and get what I want. And then I'll often convert it to MIDI and tweak it, although I didn't have to do that for this part here. And the same with the bass parts on this. Often I'll play bass parts, or I will double bass parts and have MIDI, triggered and everything. None of that here. Had to get it done quickly, and honestly, the studio instruments are pretty good. I didn't use any of the studio Performer keyboard stuff. I don't generally like that as much, and I play piano primarily, so it's pretty straightforward for me to play those parts. You see here, I'm just playing the grand, the studio. Anyway, let's see what happens here. You just keep going here, and get the groove happening, and then in comes Strong Bad singing. You can see I chop stuff up and move it around. Where are we? There we go. Yeah, chopped it up, mushed them together, move them around. And, I just kind of listen and try to get an idea what key he's roughly in and what chords are sort of implied. And sometimes I try to put a surprising chord in or have a, relatively sophisticated reharmonization. And sometimes I'm just going with what it really implies. Here I'm just going with what it implies, a 1 chord and a 4 chord. And do some stabs on the horns. Let's see. Bane of the DOT. Okay, great. So you can see that I, got things chopped up and nudged them around to get them where they need to be. For each section, I try to set the key and the tempo to match the section's vocal part. And switching up tempos lets me minimize the chopping up of parts. And I find with voice, when you use flex mode, it often changes the timbre noticeably. So I prefer to just chop up and get things aligned that way and just make sure the strong beats are there. And then on the weaker beats, he might be slipping out of time, which is just on brand for strong bats. That's what we do. The Brothers Chaps didn't give me a whole lot of direction, although I think they would have had I asked. But I just sort of dove in. The first segment, the segment we're listening to now, I imagine this being kind of like the opening of a concert by the Blues Brothers or something like that. And so now here, as everything drops out, I add in some hand claps.
Just the claps. Just the claps.
I just keep everything drops out and the hand claps come in and there's energy. And so with the horn parts, I did program in some articulation. So you'll notice that got some staccato parts, and then there's like a fall right here. Wow, just a little bit of one, just to kind of like make it less like a keyboard, hopefully, and more like actual horns. Anyway, so yeah, brought in the hand claps, just the claps,
Just the claps. Just the claps.
So you can see there's a tempo change here, and we go right into this Beastie Boys breakdown. In the first version I put together, there was a section that reprised the music from Room So 2. As much as I liked the section, I had to admit that it killed the momentum, and removing it was one of the only two notes that I can remember getting from the Brothers Chaps about changes to make to the recording that I gave them, and removing it was the right move. I was a little concerned that the hand claps and drum and vocal part going right into the Beastie Boys breakdown, it would be like, a rap section followed by a rap section, but it really doesn't hit that way. I think it works pretty well. So here we go. So this Beastie Boys-ish breakdown has the only sample, only like Apple loop that I used here. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. It's crate digging scratch. So I add some drums into it there, but if you like that crate digging sound and you have Logic Pro, it's one of the Apple loops. Go ahead and grab it. But anyway, so I added some drums in to do a transition, the tempo change. And here finally the chords get a little interesting. And I did a bunch of guitar licks on this part. You can see I only used like one or two guitar sounds. This is the section where the electric keyboard comes in, and you can see I only have two keyboard sounds. I have piano, I have electric keyboard. I could have done all different instruments for every section, but one of the only notes that I got was to make it like Meatloaf. And there's a lot of musicians on Paradise by the Dashboard Light, but it's not like there's organ and synth and piano and electric piano and clavinet and or at least if there is, it doesn't register that way for me. It's just a few instruments. So I kind of wanted to keep that kind of consistent vibe. You can see though that over here, instead of using automation to bring things up and down, I just have one that's loud and one that's quiet. When you're moving stuff around and you forget to move the automation, now I gotta go move the automation, and I just and I usually don't want to be riding faders. I usually just want it loud, quiet. So let's go back to the beginning of this. Now every strong bad medley needs a mellow R&B section. So here we introduce a different drum kit and a different drum style, and we bring in the electric piano for the first time. I wanted to avoid having 800 tracks, like I said, so just electric piano, that's it. Two different drum kits, two different basses, two different guitars. That's it. You can see I did a bunch of noodles in here, and they were all terrible. But I kept this one because it mirrored Strong Bad's vocal line, but it's played in rhythm, and I think the effect is really cool. I'm going to solo it and the vocals. Whoops. I don't know. I guess in context it's better. Yeah, so I like that. Anyway, all right. But I did a bunch of other noodles that are terrible, so and I wasn't going to spend a lot of time trying to get better noodles because got to turn this around, you know? Okay. And it didn't really need them. So the drums stop here, and everything stops, but then the keys come back in. Just the keys.
Just the claps. Just the claps.
Playing those same chords. Just keys and vocals, nothing else. And we're going to change tempo soon. So I mentioned Meatloaf before. This next part is definitely inspired by Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I think it's probably the most directly inspired part. It's one of the very few directions that I said that the Brothers Chaps gave me at the outset. So this is just pianos and guitar and a straightforward retro rock and roll groove. You know, da 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 da. So high register, and then if we just like do just the drums and the piano and the bass, and we'll do the guitars. I think I have them panned to different sides and using two different sounds. Yeah, so like as straightforward rock and roll as it gets. Da, 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 da. Alright, good chord there. So now we come to the hip hop beat part, or maybe it's just a more modern R&B groove than the one from before. This is the part where I really allowed myself to be a little more creative with the harmonies. There's nothing too slick in there, but you want little surprises so the ear doesn't get bored. So we're now, I guess we're in the key of B flat here, but we got like, we go to an A flat every once in a while. And then deceptive cadence, I like that part. We go to B, and A flat, a little surprise there. All right, this is the other note that they gave me. The original one that I sent didn't have this drum fill. It had like maybe like a snare hit or something. And Matt Chapman sent me, you know, he said I'd like a big drum fill before that section, and he sent me an audio file of him singing the drum fill so that I would know what to program. But he did it in character, so he has strong bad singing, you know. And boodly blap blap boxing gloves, everybody loves you tonight. There's my terrible strong bad impression. You know, he jokingly suggested just using his iPhone recording of him saying boodly blap. So I did create the drum fill, but I also kept the boodle blap in there. It's right here. So okay. Anyway, transparent pins the boxing gloves. I'm just following. You know, I mean, it practically writes itself. I mean, like this part, slightly different chord changes. Here comes the E over B. There you go, and then the B. All right, and that's the whole thing. So, I don't know. Maybe this was helpful. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. You tell me. Thanks for watching.
Stay